Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning. I am pleased to be here with our partners to launch Fraud Prevention Month and to reveal the top 5 most damaging frauds and scams in Toronto. Fighting fraud is a joint effort, and Fraud Prevention Month is a national initiative dedicated to raising awareness and empowering Canadians to protect themselves. Fraud impacts thousands of individuals and businesses here in Toronto every year, leading to significant financial losses, eroding trust, and impacting lives. With scams becoming more sophisticated and the digital landscape constantly evolving, knowledge is our best defense. Fraud occurrences have reached unprecedented levels. In 2024, the Toronto Police Service received just under 17,000 fraud reports, with losses exceeding $368 million. Due to shame and embarrassment and other reasons, fraud is vastly underreported, and we believe the actual numbers to be 10 to 20 times higher. The top 5 frauds, based on reported financial losses impacting Toronto residents, are online investment scams, which I'll speak about more in depth in a minute, with reported losses of $71.2 million. Account takeovers, which can be bank account, cell phone, or social media account takeovers, were reported at $36.1 million. Confidence scams, which are commonly known as con man scams, like romance, grandparent, renovation, or taxi scams, were reported at $34.5 million. Cryptocurrency scams were reported at $32.8 million. And identity theft, which had $16.4 million in reported losses. And as I said, we know the actual numbers are much, much higher. Today, I want to make Toronto residents aware of the most damaging scam being reported to us, the online investment scam. Scammers are posing as legitimate investment firms, promising high returns with little to no risk. The online investment scam often begins as a romance scam, initiating contact through phishing texts and emails, creating fake profiles on dating sites or social media, and then building trust and fostering relationships over weeks or even months. Once trust is established, the scammers subtly introduce an investment opportunity. Victims, enticed by the lure of financial gains, end up transferring funds to the scammers. Once a victim invests, they may show fake profits to encourage more deposits. But when you try to withdraw your money, they disappear along with your money. Today we're launching another video in our Don't Get Scammed series, focusing on the online investment scam, where we share tips on how Toronto residents can recognize this scam and protect themselves from it. The video is now available on the Toronto Police YouTube page. No one is immune to being scammed. However, by staying informed and speaking up, we can all play a role in preventing fraud and protecting our communities. Our goal is always to encourage residents to recognize, reject, and report fraud. Throughout the month, we'll collaborate with our partners across government, law enforcement, and the private sector to provide Canadians with the tools, resources, and information they need to protect themselves against fraud. This includes our role in the Toronto Strategic Partnership, which in its 25th year brings the Toronto Police Service's mass marketing section together with partners from across Canada and the United States in ongoing efforts to combat fraud. Members of the partnership include Competition Bureau Canada, Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, Ontario Ministry of Finance, Ontario Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery, Canada Post Security and Investigation Services, United States Postal Inspection Service, United States Federal Trade Commission, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and the Ontario Provincial Police. Thank you for your support And thank you again to our partners and to all of you for helping to spread the knowledge and awareness that are paramount in the fight against fraud. Thank you, and I'd like to welcome Jeff Horncastle from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre to say a few words.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here today alongside our partners from law enforcement and government community. I'm going to start off by mentioning the CAFC has been a member of the Toronto Strategic Partnership for 25 years, since we were phone busters. The Fraud Prevention Month is a month in which the public and private sectors come together to spread awareness and education related to fraud in Canada. This year's Fraud Prevention Month marks the 21st anniversary of the campaign, in which this year's campaign will focus on uncovering fraud. We'll be looking at some of the most common tools fraudsters use, how fraud impacts victims beyond the financial loss, how to report, where to report. If you haven't been a victim and you want to report, you can report to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre as well. Bottom line, fraud is a huge issue in Canada. Like was just mentioned, in Toronto alone, over $368 million was lost. $638 million was reported lost to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre in 2024. And again, that's estimating that, it's only the tip of the iceberg. We estimate that only 5 to 10% of victims report to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So our goal is to really spread awareness and, encourage reporting where we can. There's a lot of stigma with being a victim. Phrases like, it's just a scam and things like that. We're trying to get away from to encourage reporting and, bringing awareness to the fact that anybody can be a victim of fraud. So it's, essentially, our goal here is just to bring awareness, education, and encourage reporting. Events like this, help do that. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Josephine Palumbo, Deputy Commissioner of Competition, Cartels, and Deceptive Marketing Practices Branch at the Competition Bureau of Canada.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Dave. Thank you to the Toronto Police Service for hosting this event and for inviting us to the launch of Fraud Prevention Month 2025. Merci au service de police de Toronto d'avoir organisé cet événement et de nous avoir invités à participer au lancement du mois de la prévention de la fraude 2025. The Competition Bureau is an independent federal law enforcement agency, and we ensure that Canadians can prosper in a competitive and innovative marketplace. We enforce the Competition Act, which regulates various business practices, including misleading advertising. We're honored to serve as a campaign co-chairs along with the CAFC and the RCMP. And thanks to the now over 80 foreign partners from both the private and the public sector, including long-standing partners like the Toronto Police Service, our annual awareness campaign has become a real success. This year, the Bureau's theme is Spotting the New Face of Fraud, and it will highlight impersonation scams, including fake websites, AI-generated fraud, and deceptive telemarketing scams. As technologies streamline our lives, fraudsters are targeting Canadians with increasingly sophisticated schemes. Le thème de cette année, Repérer le nouveau visage de la fraude, mettra en lumière les arnaques liées à l'usurpation d'identité, y compris les faux sites web, les fraudes générées par le IA et les arnaques de télémarketing trompeur. Alors que la technologie simplifie notre vie, les frauduleurs ciblent les Canadiens et les Canadiennes avec des stratagèmes de plus en plus sophistiqués. Our goal is to give Canadians the tools they need to recognize, to reject, and to report fraud. Because fraudsters don't discriminate, they will target anyone, from teens to seniors, from consumers to big corporations. And this can have a long-term devastating impact on individuals, on businesses, and the economy. And so, during March, we invite Canadians to learn how to recognize the telltale signs of fraud and how to report it to the Competition Bureau, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, or their local police. Durant le mois de mars, nous invitons donc la population canadienne à apprendre et à détecter les signes révélateurs de la fraude et à les signaler au Bureau de la concurrence, au Centre anti-fraude du Canada ou leur service de police local. They can check out our website for great information about common scams and deceptive marketing practices. They can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and X, where we share information about scams and useful links and videos. At the Competition Bureau, we believe that knowledge is power and that the combat against fraud is a collaborative one. Law enforcement agencies are working harder than ever to do their part, but we need you, the public's help, in identifying scams that may not yet be on our radar. It's now time to join Canadians, to join the movement. Thank you for being here and for supporting Fraud Prevention Month. Merci d'être ici et de soutenir le mois de la prévention de la fraude.
Reaction are you getting from the financial institutions? Because these people are not hiding their life savings under their mattress. It's coming from a bank. Are these banks doing anything proactively to help protect their own customers?
Yeah, absolutely they are. Financial institutions are regulated under FinTrack. They have regulations which they have without, whether they want to or not, they have to abide by. Any money laundering practices within the banks are very stringent. I know the banks to be supportive of victims for the most part. It's not the banks that are the issue, it's the fraudsters for one thing, and it's the methods that the money is being sent is generally on the digital scale. It's on the in the cyber world. It presents challenges for the banks, it presents challenges for law enforcement and for all our partners.
We've covered 2 stories recently on our newscast. It's this PC Financial website.
Yeah.
It's looking like it is. So the gentleman went to his bank to transfer the money. The bank transferred it not to a PC Financial, but to a BMO. Now, how did the bank not know that that was not PC Financial? That's sort of my point of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to any particular case that's in the news these days. The banks are very much aware of that issue. For myself, it's more of a social media issue. It's the website issue. The banks are aware of it now. They'll certainly be trying to educate their clients as they come in. But fraudsters are constantly evolving. The frauds are complex, they're sophisticated, they evolve, they change. When we zig, when the banks zig, they zag. So whatever parameters and security measures that we all put up, they are quicker and they're able to get bypast them until we're able to react. And we're inevitably always going to be slower than them.
So we know about this PC Financial website. Has it been shut down? Have you tracked these guys down yet?
I don't know specifically. I do know that if it has been shut down, they can start up another one within the next second.
The question also is, how much more prevalent are these online scams becoming? Are there more and more fraudsters out there trying to build people of their hard-earned money?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. I mean, fraud is one of the greatest beneficiaries of the advances of technology. We know as well that fraud is now a global, national criminal organization issue. We've got global criminal organizations from across the planet that are targeting us and targeting the West, targeting other countries across the planet, and using technology. When the technology advances, the fraudsters are the first ones to capitalize on it. Artificial intelligence is the next one. It's the one that's happening now. The wave has already started. Prior to that, it was COVID's isolation. We were all in our basements on our computers. Fraudsters took advantage of that. Prior to that, it was the invention of the internet. That was the great leap forward. So again, fraudsters will always take advantage of technology simply because there is so much money. Over $1 trillion was lost to fraud in 2024, some estimates. And again, whatever estimates we have, multiply them by 20, because that's probably closer to the actual number. So that the rewards for the fraudsters is substantial, and that's an understatement. The risk to them is minimal because they're not here. They're across the globe. They're in other countries across the world.
And what's the success rate of trying to get some of this stuff back, whether it's cash, whether it's Bitcoin? Has there been any success in trying to do this?
There has.
Technology to our advantage?
Sure. Yeah, there has been some success. I'm glad you asked. Officer Armit here from the OPP, they have an excellent program going called Project Atlas, which priority is recovering funds for people who have lost their money to fraud. It is not easy. It is a challenge. That is the nature of cryptocurrency, that it is gone instantly. And if the fraudsters are really sophisticated and really complex, there are many ways in which they can hide that money, move it around, and again, they're not here for the most part.
People are hesitant in coming forward, you were mentioning as well, when they become victims of fraud. So like these numbers where we see $300+ million. Are those numbers actually potentially much higher?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like Jeff said, the estimate is that only 5 to 10% of frauds are reported. And again, I think that's optimistic. So yeah, there is a lot of shame. There's a lot of embarrassment. I mean, people don't, if it's a senior that's been targeted, they may be reluctant to tell their family. Spouses may be reluctant to tell their spouses. There's all kinds of reasons that people will be reluctant to come to the police to make a report. Some of it is a lack of faith in the system itself. And again, the challenges of us recovering are substantial, and I think that's eroding the trust as well with the community.
The advisory to put out there to people who may fall victim to something like this, or maybe people looking out for their loved ones, maybe that senior might be getting scammed.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, we like to, the ideal is to prevent it before it happens, before the money is gone. So that's why we're here today. We want to spread the word. We want people to be aware that there is a constant threat from these fraudsters. Every text, every email, look at it with a skeptical eye, because that's how they're getting to us as soon as we have a phone in our hand or we sit down at a computer. If somebody is a victim of the crime, it is really paramount to report it to police. Report it to us, report it to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, because that's how we gather the tools to fight back. If we don't know what's happening, if we don't see the trends, then there's nothing we can do. We may not have a successful conclusion to each individual report, but if we get a number of them and we recognize that something is happening, we can get the word out. We can tell other people who may be victims not to do this, not to do that. The PC Financial one is an excellent example. Don't do investment opportunities through Google. Talk to an advisor, talk to people in person. That's what we need to get back to. Walk into the bank and say, I've got all these GICs maturing. What can I do with them? Don't just Google it, because that's where the fraudsters are waiting.
So that's sort of the number one thing people should do. Make it a face-to-face, get a financial planner, walk into your bank.
Absolutely, yeah. Just vigilance and due diligence. Whereas before we could do 1 check, do 2 checks, now do 3, 4 checks. Just keep checking. Talk to family, talk to friends, talk to professionals and see what they think. Don't just do it in a blink of an eye, because that's one of the ways they get us, is through urgency. Buy these now. They're only available for the next 2 hours. Get them now. Do this now, or this is going to happen. Urgency is one of the biggest red flags, and it's common no matter what the fraud is. There's always some amount of urgency. They're trying to stop you from thinking and second guessing.
You were mentioning seniors. Can you just describe the people who you see most frequently targeted?
Certainly, seniors are heavily targeted. They seem to be they lose the most money, which makes sense because, seniors at the point of life they may have pensions, they may have their houses paid off, they're seen as a bigger target. But certainly in terms of who's vulnerable, all of us, anyone who doesn't have the knowledge and awareness really to recognize, all of us, and that's to say, 9 out of 10 times that text comes out through on your phone, you're going to delete it. But it's just that one particular moment in time where they get you, where the planets have aligned, where you click. So we're all vulnerable. Our youth are vulnerable. The moment we give our children a cell phone, you're making them vulnerable.
What do you do with these virtual banks? There's no way to walk into the bank to have that human interaction. What should these people do? Particularly.
Well, I wouldn't use, myself, I wouldn't do that. I would always use a bank where I could walk into. Again, if it's a virtual bank, there are banks online that are legitimate, of course. Just do your diligence, look into them, talk to somebody. The big thing about frauds too is they come to you generally. You know, these things come to us unsolicited. We're not asking for it, but we'll get texts and emails saying, hey, here's a great opportunity. Here's a great job. You know, hey, remember me? We met and we kicked it. We had a great relation. Things like that. They start the communication off generally. So that's another red flag to be aware of.
Any other questions? Great. Thanks, everyone.